Thanks, Jeff. Next slide, please. Welcome, everyone, and happy Halloween. I hope you're doing well wherever you're joining us from today. My name is Emily Stock, and I'm the project manager for volunteer initiatives with AmeriCorps, and I have the honor and privilege of co-leading the National Days of Service here at AmeriCorps. The Martin Luther King Jr. National Day of Service is a defining moment each year when Americans come across the country step up to make communities more equitable and take action to create the beloved community of Dr. King's dream. This year, we celebrate 30 years of MLK Day of Service and its impact as more Americans embrace the idea that citizenship involves taking an active role in improving communities. AmeriCorps remains committed to fulfilling Dr. King's dream of creating a beloved community. Every year, we show the nation that joining together in service can unify Americans of different backgrounds and experiences to transform the lives and the lives of others. This MLK Day of Service, we're asking you to join us in fostering a sense of constructive action, civic participation, and belonging by making it a day on, not a day off. Through service and volunteerism, we can build more equitable and just communities to underpin racial equity, expand civic opportunities, and foster respect for individual differences. On today's call, 3 different organizations and my colleague at AmeriCorps will share about their MLK Day of Service to give you ideas on how you can get involved in your community on this day by hosting your own event or joining existing projects. This call is being recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel next week. We will have a Q&A time at the end, but you can add your question to the Q&A panel throughout or in the chat box. Next slide, please. And now I'd like to turn it over to Megan from Jersey Cares, our first presenter.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you again so much for joining us. I am seriously so excited to be here to talk to you about what we are doing for our MLK Day of Service. I know it's Halloween, might seem early to be talking about this, but the earlier you start, the better. So if we can move to the next slide. So we're going to talk about just amplifying your impact tenfold, both with your volunteers and with your nonprofit partners. So when we sat down to think about designing our projects, there were a couple of things that we asked ourselves, right? And here are some questions you can ask yourselves too. So, how can we better serve our community partners? Here at Jersey Cares, we are a nonprofit ourselves, but we are working with other nonprofits and community organizations to be able to put together these days of service. So as we're thinking of that, as opposed to planning those projects and going out and then looping people in, how can this really be a collaborative effort? We also were thinking, how can we foster connections between volunteers? Very important, to really form that sense of community. So how are we doing that? And how can we help volunteers find that deeper meaning in their work? We don't want people to just be showing up, going home, and not being able to tell you what they did. So really thinking of ways that we can really connect them to the impact that they're making. And as we're asking ourselves all of these questions, the focus, of course, was just on increasing our impact across everything, both for our partners and volunteers. We know that as we're planning, it can be very easy to, feel that you have to put something on, throw something together, but we want to kind of get out of that rut of thinking and really start to make things as impactful as possible. And we found that, the answer in all of those ways was, that mission-driven connection that we're going to go through in a little more detail. So next slide. So the first thing we were thinking about is really centering our community partners in everything. So when we were choosing our partners and our projects, first and foremost, we are looking for organizations that span our service area. We serve the entire state of New Jersey. And although we might have some of those local partners that we tend to work with more often, the partners that will show up, is always there right down the road, really thinking if we're trying to engage volunteers all across the state, we also want to be able to say that we are supporting communities through our donations, through our efforts all across the state as well. So that was something we focused on. We really started to think creatively about how to increase our community impact, again, within the limits of our staff capacity. So we are a team of around 15, with 2 of us dedicatedly planning for MLK Day of Service, but we are engaging upwards of 2,000 volunteers across the weekend. So staff capacity is definitely something to pay attention to on our end. As much as we wish we could have hundreds of projects across the state, just being realistic with what we were able to do. And one of the ways that we were looking at doing that is, we have 3 very large sites. So they are 3 sites of 400 volunteers each, 2 shifts of 200. And really then looking to, again, make it as easy as possible, but as effective as possible, really making that impact, driving that home. So as we're doing things like that, one of the largest ways we do that, because we are engaging ages 4 and up in all of our activities, we want to also involve the family, right? It's a day on, not a day off for everyone. So making those opportunities that are appropriate for everyone to get involved in. We are having one main of what we call Service Express. So it's a kit packing project. There's a creative component as well as a packing, activity that goes involved with that. But even though we're doing one project at each, really diversifying those impact areas. So for example, we are making literacy kits at one of those sites. In the morning, we will be supporting adult literacy, and in the afternoon, we are supporting children's literacy. So in that way, a very simple switch of just engaging a different partner, pulling someone else in, it really doesn't change all that much for our staff, but it really increases our impact, not only in area, but also in terms of impact area. So here's just a quick list of some of the impact areas that we've been able to pull in by using this mindset. So we are supporting veterans, students, food insecurity, social justice, animals, environment, refugees, literacy, grief support, mental health, and more. And again, this is with a team of 2 planning, and maybe 15 of us actually going to be there staffing these projects. So I promise I'm here to tell you it is possible. So just really making sure, again, that we are pulling in that impact from our community partners, right? And one of those ways is a simple ask to our community partners of how they would like us to customize the project to fit their needs. So we host these events often. We have that supply list, but in the example of the literacy kits, sending that over and saying, what's different for our adults and our children? It was really just a different kind of book. Maybe our, color choices are a little more colorful for the kids, but really, really simple switches that overarchingly is going to make your days of service so much more impactful. So next slide. The next thing is really connecting the volunteers to that mission-driven work. I think this is so important. One of the things we are focusing here at Jersey Cares this year is the impact, not just on the community, because inherently, right, all of the projects that we do are going to have an impact on the community, but also how is it impacting the volunteers? What are they taking away from this? How are we making better humans, right? How are we changing people, to think more, socially driven, to really think about what they're doing and the community around them. First and foremost, that means inviting our partners to speak directly to our volunteers. Again, it's really small, simple switches that can drive home so much impact. Typically at the beginning of our projects, when we're going out, we're telling them a little bit about Jersey Cares, who we are, what we do. We give a small blurb about the organization that the project is, benefiting in whatever way that may be. But hearing from someone directly who works, maybe it's with, the veterans that we're supporting, or who works with the kids for that literacy project, hearing from someone, hearing their passion, hearing that come through, there's a connection point just from a human to human perspective that I think is really important in connecting the volunteers to not just I am here. I did an arts and crafts. It was cool for MLK Day and going home, but really truly understanding what they did that day. So again, just encouraging those community partners while they're there also to promote additional ways to get involved and support their organization. As much as, we would love for people to continue coming back for Jersey Cares, if we can connect them with that community partner and they say, wow, that was really incredible. What are other ways I could support them? If they go directly to them, that's amazing. I put it on the end here, but I really truly think that it is our job to put ourselves out of work. I love my job. I'm very fortunate, but I would love a day where my job is not needed, right? All of the community organizations have as many volunteers as possible. All the volunteers know how to go directly to their community partners. Until that time, of course, we're here to help facilitate that. But again, just really wanting to draw those connections with our partners. Tailoring materials for each partner organization, as simple as what's that card template look like? If we are making dog kits, which is another one of our large Service Express sites, one of those is supporting shelter animals, and one we are working with a veterans organization that provides service animals to veterans. So maybe that card template has a red, white, and blue border. It's those little personal touches that also, as volunteers are seeing that throughout the project, they're now truly deeply understanding who it is and who they are serving. So just, continuing to think about those connection points that can be made, just really, really driving home that point. And it is my favorite thing to say, but it really is our job is to put ourselves out of work. So the more that we can pull those community partners in, the more impactful, and also truly the more people are going to want to come back to your projects, right? If they're like, wow, that really made me feel something, anything, right? That's really what it's all about. We could go to the next slide. And then the last piece that we're thinking about is truly building that connected volunteer community. Of course, we want them to understand their impact. We want them to connect with our community partners. We want it to be beneficial for our community partners. But how are we facilitating connections, just that human to human piece? So little ways like encouraging volunteers to sit with people they don't know. I know, if I'm walking into a room and there's a large group and I'm coming in with my one friend or two, I'm probably sitting with those people, but really trying to open those doors. One of my favorite parts about our MLK Day of Service, especially because we are engaging ages 4 and up, is we are seeing volunteers from age 4, all the way to grandparents who are coming with their young kids. We really see all different ages, backgrounds, experiences, and really encouraging people to connect. I think it's important, now more than ever. So some of those ways that we're, continuing to provide those connection points is we're going to have discussion questions at those tables. Volunteers are sitting down, they wait for you to get started, they're chatting amongst themselves, but really encouraging them to chat amongst the larger group. To not only connect with each other, but to connect with the partner organization. So this is one of my favorite things that we're doing. I think it's really exciting. If I am cheesing, it's because I really am just so excited about what we're doing this year. But let's go back to those dog kits for the example. We have questions, maybe like 4 or 5 questions, starting from something that most people can talk about that, you really don't have to take much. People love talking about themselves, right? Their own experiences. So for those dog kits, the first one is, do you have a pet? Tell us about them. Who doesn't love talking about their pets if they have a pet, right? So that is just something where even if that is the end of your conversation and you have that conversation with one other person that you don't know, that's amazing. We have done our job. But those questions range from something as simple, that everyone can talk about. Do you have a favorite story, a favorite animal, whatever that is, all the way down to really now tying it into the community partner. Why are service pets important for veterans? So, they have the option to get as surface level or as deep as they want, but as long as they are connecting with each other, I really feel that, again, you're building that greater community, right? I think that's so important, especially as we talk about what we're doing for MLK Day of Service is building community within each other. So again, it's so important highlighting, that sense of shared purpose. We're all here for that same thing, realizing, hey, maybe that person who sat across from me is from another part of town or another part of the state or whatever that may be. And wow, we both have cats at home, or we both, know someone who has a service animal, whatever that may be. Just those connection points are so, so important. Also just, creating that warm and welcoming environment. It can be uncomfortable, right? Maybe you pushed outside your comfort zone, you're showing up to a project alone, amazing. But now you're sitting there and you're watching people who know each other, talk to each other, right? We want that sense of community. We want you to walk in and say, wow, this is something special. This is something different, and feel it tangibly. Maybe that means that they, return next year to your MLK Day of Service projects, or maybe better yet, they're reaching out to that, volunteer part, that community partner, and volunteering with them, or signing up for additional projects that you may have. So no matter what that connection piece is, to form that connection, I think is so incredibly valuable. And next slide. So yes, I just really encourage everyone as we are going through this, right? Just focus on the impact, build those impact-driven volunteer experiences. Maybe you say, hey, let's pick one point of that, right? Let's bring in our community partners and have them speak at the beginning. If that is the one step that you do this year, amazing. If you want to take those discussion question ideas, right, and put those on the table, maybe that's something that, takes you an hour to put together, incredible. Whatever you're doing is just being very intentional with the projects you choose. I completely understand, as someone who runs these volunteer events all the time, right? You might feel like, okay, well, we have to put this on and this is the easiest way to do it. I think there really is a way to do both. Put something on because you have to, but then do it because you want to, right? And I think you feel that. You can feel the difference when you walk into a room and say, wow, there were things that were done in this planning process to be so intentional with what we were doing. I feel the impact. I walk away and I didn't just say, hey, I volunteered with Jersey Cares and I decorated a card. I say, I volunteered with Jersey Cares on MLK Day and I impacted this veterans organization, and these are going to veterans, right? Just that deep, deep understanding. And I really think that small tweaks in your planning process can make that happen. Again, inviting your community partners to be a part of the planning. Are you doing kits? Can they see what they are? Maybe they say, actually, I see that you put that one item in there for our population and who we're serving. This would be so much better. Little simple swaps. Again, now you're impacting that community so much more, as opposed to maybe they're taking that item out of the kit or whatever it is. Now you know that what they're getting, they're using for the benefit and the purpose that it's intended for. Just really asking yourself how your choices impact the volunteer. Do you have people who are at registration who are creating that warm and welcoming environment? But again, just really bringing it all home to why we're here, why we're doing this. We like to do things that we call challenge by choice. So you're not forcing people to do anything, but again, encouraging them, right, to have those conversations, encouraging them to get more connected, encouraging them to ask questions. And I think the best way to do all of this and to be so intentional is to start now. The earlier you start, the better, and the more impactful and intentional you can be in your planning. So I thank you all so much. I look forward to seeing what all of your MLK Day of Service projects look like, and I'll pass that back to Emily.
Thank you, Megan. I said this before, but your passion and excitement, enthusiasm are infectious. So thank you for sharing that with us. And I hope the participants have picked up on that enthusiasm. So thank you. Next slide, please. Great. And up next, we have Kayla, who is also equally enthusiastic and passionate about Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service. So Kayla is joining us from Cherry Health.
Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here today to talk about days of service. If we can go to the next slide, please. Just a little bit about our program. At Cherry Health, we've had an AmeriCorps program since 2003. We're located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in Michigan's largest federally qualified health center. We are the recipients of Public Health AmeriCorps funding for this past 3 years. We have about 20 members on our team, and we are focused on increasing access to healthcare through Medicaid outreach and enrollment, and currently health education for breast, cervical, and colorectal cancer outreach. Next year, we will be pivoting to youth mental health. Excited about that as a social worker. We also do other services to increase access to care and help address health issues in the community. We have a lot of training on our team, so our members get community health worker training, healthcare interpreter training, and more. Each month we do 2 team meetings monthly and 1 service project monthly. So we really love our service projects at Cherry Health AmeriCorps. And our members seem to like it too. About a third return for service, a third gain employment with Cherry Health or one of our partner organizations, maybe one that we did a service project with. And then about another third go on to higher education or to continue their education. So next slide. I'm a Cherry Health AmeriCorps alum myself. I'd like to highlight a couple National Days of Service projects we recently did. So going back to our 9/11 Day of Service that we held this year in 2024, we leveraged our partnership with a local nonprofit called Kids Food Basket. Kids Food Basket puts together meals for children experiencing food insecurity in West Michigan. They make about they serve about 10,000 kids each week. They have a lot of capacity to absorb volunteer service, which is one reason that we partnered with them. They are sending food home with kids. Some of it is non-perishable. So you'll have your meat stick, your pudding, crackers, and then it'll be paired with a fresh fruit or vegetable. So they're getting that extra nutrition that they need to be their best selves when they're in school and to grow and develop and all of those wonderful things. This year for 9/11, we collaborated with the Michigan Community Service Commission, Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, and community volunteers. During that time, we picked 100 pounds of fresh tricolor beans, picked and washed them, and then we made 2,500 bean and cheese roll-ups. And because they serve so many children, all of those things that we did were in the hands of children experiencing food insecurity right away. So you can see the health focus, it aligns with our program mission. And we were really lucky to do this partnership, which is, I think, is one of the biggest steps of success when you're planning your day of service, is find somebody you can partner with. So the partnership with Michigan Department of Agriculture and Rural Development, we did that because they have community service hours that they can use every year. They were kind of running the clock out on when they could keep using those hours. So they reached out to us and said, can we do a day of service together so we can use up our community service hours? So not only did we get to know more people who work in service-oriented jobs, we got to expand our impact and get to know other people and spread each other's mission. So we had a lot of fun that day. We also involved community volunteers. We opened it up so other people could come in and learn about our programs and make an impact in the community, including members who were going to start that next week in their terms of service. So we invited them to come along so they could get a preview to what being an AmeriCorps member is all about. We got t-shirts, which was really cool. T-shirts are a big draw to a lot of our events if you have the funds to support them. So we have that 9/11 Day of Service logo on the front, and on the back of our shirts, it said Honor, Serve, Unite. So just visually, it gives that team focus, and it is reiterating our mission and why we're there. Next slide, please. Earlier this year, we did MLK Day of Service, which is what's bringing us all here. We leveraged our partnership with Kids Food Basket again. And in reverse chronological order, you can see we've partnered with them for several years. So going into our next MLK Day of Service, we're probably going to partner with somebody else because we've tapped them a lot for partnership. We started in the 21-22 program year with just packing 350 supper packs with Cherry Health staff mobilized as volunteers. We upped the ante our next year in 22-23 and packed 1,200 supper packs. So again, we mobilized Cherry Health staff and also foundation stakeholders. So we have a Cherry Health Foundation that helps to earn philanthropic money for our organization, and they often want to get their hands involved in something that we're doing. They're often giving their money generously to us, Cherry Health as an organization, not necessarily AmeriCorps, but AmeriCorps gives that hands-on experience that they're also looking for. And our CEO said, I think we can do even more in this next project. So we said, okay, we'll triple it. So in 23-24, we packed 3,600 supper packs. So those supper packs are going home with kids after school. We partnered with even more community partners, Corewell Health, which is a large health system in the Grand Rapids and Michigan, actually it's across Michigan. We partnered with our Cherry Health board. So that was a great way for them to get exposure to what our AmeriCorps program does and learn our mission. We again partnered with the foundation board and stakeholders and opened it up to the community because we had plenty of space. So you can see in our pictures here, we have our Cherry Health AmeriCorps kit on, we've got our volunteers lined up, assembly line style, and we are packing those supper packs and dealing with all of that recycling that came out of that. Beforehand, we're dealing with large pallets of food coming in and organizing that. So it really does take quite a bit of planning. But I would like to say here, don't underestimate what you can do with your volunteers, because we got all of this done in a short amount of time. It was maybe 2 hours it took us to pack 3,600 supper packs. Next slide, please. We'll go into a little bit of strategy for that. This picture here is from a large service project we do in Michigan. It's not a day of service. It's called Russ Mobby Signature Service Project. So we have over 100 AmeriCorps members and volunteers at this project every year. So you can say we really love service projects in Michigan. And we have a few things for success that travel through all types of large scale service projects that we are involved in. The first part is writing it into your AmeriCorps budget. So when you're doing that budget, write in those days of service. Often it doesn't take a ton of money, and sometimes you can get philanthropic support to help you purchase your supplies. We're lucky enough to have a high match, so we're able to write it into our grant every year because Cherry Health generously matches our AmeriCorps budget. Your state service commission might offer mini grants. So if they do that, leverage that mini grant money, because you can buy t-shirts, you can get snacks, you can get food, and maybe you can even partner and collaborate with your day of service partners to further leverage supplies and resources to get the project that you have planned done. Speaking of planning, start at least 3 months in advance, because you would be surprised how many little pieces come into play for planning them. It's not always necessarily hard. You just have to get the logistics in place, and you don't want to be caught off guard. So for MLK, I'd start right now. That's probably why we're having this call with this timing. You can get your members to participate in planning, and you can collaborate with other program directors. So if you have other AmeriCorps programs in your area, give them a call, send them an email, ask if they want to collaborate for a day of service. That's a great way to, members really like to get to know each other and what other programs are doing in the area, so it makes it more fun. Lean on the resources that AmeriCorps provides. There are MLK Day buttons, MLK Day supplies. You can make t-shirts. You can leverage AmeriCorps resources for education. You might have a video often for MLK Day. You can just play for all the participants. And it doesn't need to be hard when you're talking about providing education for why you're gathering on 9/11 or MLK Day. You could just show that video. You could have your program director or another lead give a quick speech about why you're all gathered there today. It does not need to be a big deal, just something to acknowledge why you all are engaging in service that day. Volunteer mobilization is a huge part of days of service, and community volunteers are great. You're gonna meet a lot of people that maybe you didn't know beforehand, but others that might not know what you do in AmeriCorps could be your organization staff. Invite them to come along and serve alongside your AmeriCorps members, and that's a great way to enhance the knowledge of AmeriCorps across the organization, which also can help with things like compliance, which we're always keeping in mind. And everybody just gets to know each other, and you get a good sense of camaraderie. Mention t-shirts, mention snacks. If you can provide that for your groups, that is always very valuable and motivating. And take lots of pictures. Don't be afraid to have them pose and get that good shot so you can put it on your social media or put it in a presentation like this or just have around for a sense of pride. Those are the things that we have found to really make our days of service successful. Make it a little party, play some music, get to know each other, and just have fun with it while you make an impact.
Thank you, Kayla. Thank you for those tips. I really love what you were talking about the education and reflection. It doesn't have to be super in-depth and detailed. There's a lot of really easy things that you can do that would make a meaningful impact, and those conversation starters are really important. So thank you for that. Next slide, please. And now we have yet another excited and infectious grantee to come talk about their MLK Day project. So Michael with Youth Service America.
Great, thank you, Emily, and hello, everybody. Here at Youth Service America, our work is really focused on increasing the quantity and quality of youth service opportunities, because we know from the Volunteering in America data from AmeriCorps and other sources that only about 1 in 4 young people regularly volunteer, and our goal is to at least double that in celebration of America's 250th in 2026, and use that as a launching point to get to universal volunteering, where 100% of young people are regularly serving as they're growing up. And days of service are certainly a big part of that work. And on the next slide, we really think about helping young people choose service projects that they can help organize themselves to engage their peers, to provide those volunteer opportunities to other kids in their, in their school or in their after-school program or their youth development program, or in their neighborhood or with their family or faith-based group. And we really encourage people to think about this framework that we call Spark plus Fire plus ASAP. And we have a simple to use tip sheet and a quick video that walks through that process of helping young people choose a service project idea. And the beauty is that you can really jump in at any one of those 3 pieces. You can start with a Spark, you can start with a Fire, or you can start with an ASAP strategy. And I'll be sharing some resources on each of those. All of the resources that I'm referencing are available on ysa.org/MLKday. Just look under the project ideas and tools section, and you'll find everything that I'm referencing on the next several slides. On the next slide, we'll start with the Sparks, which are defined as a deep interest, talent, or activity that a young person is passionate about and that gives their life purpose and energy. So, the things that you enjoy doing that kind of get you up and get you excited. Kind of if you would have a perfect afternoon to spend doing anything, what would you choose to do? And the most common sparks are the creative arts, athletics and sports, learning and reading, nature and the environment, animals, science, and technology. And we have tip sheets on the most popular 4 around sports, arts, nature, and reading. Each of these outlines in detail one project example that really relates to that spark. So for sports, it's about how to do a canned food drive with a sports team and kind of using a tournament or a game to do a food drive. For arts, it's about providing music lessons to underprivileged youth. For nature, it's about raising awareness of environmental issues and in this case, being a butterfly champion and really focusing on pollinators. And we all know how important our bees are to everything. And then for reading, focusing on a book drive project to collect books for a shelter for kids who are passing through that shelter to have access to books. So, and then each of these tip sheets has other examples of YSA grantees from past years. So there's a bunch of other examples around each of these sparks. So if you kind of jump in, if you want to jump in with those passions and interests and activities that young people enjoy, these tip sheets are a great way to start. On the next slide, we'll get into the fire, which is we think of as the thing that fires you up, the issue that you care about, and this is really the community needs that we are all focused on addressing. And the broad categories are really around health, education, the environment, poverty and hunger, human rights, community building activities. So a lot of what Megan was talking about, helping seniors or veterans, community safety initiatives, that kind of thing. And we have also a ton of resources if you want to jump in from the issue side of things. So we have a guide with project ideas around all 17 of the UN global goals, so all the big issues that the world is facing, and then specific toolkits around leading anti-hunger projects, around healthy living and addressing childhood obesity projects, around disaster preparedness, around teen driver safety, and around STEM and environmental activities. And so these are all kind of more in-depth toolkits that if you're doing a kind of a full-on service learning experience, but they all include a ton of project ideas that you can pull out for a day of service in them as well. And on that note of shorter and simpler resources, on the next slide, you'll see we also have a ton of what we kind of think of as projects in a box, tip sheets that are just a couple of pages each that really go through all of these different types of project ideas in the environment, hunger, poverty, literacy, and helping seniors. And so you'll see from the titles of the resources what some of those types of activities are. And again, these are all simple 1 or 2 page guides that really help kind of plan that activity. So great for a days of service projects. On the next slide, you see what we define ASAP as being, which is not as soon as possible, but awareness, service, advocacy, and philanthropy as the types of service activities that people can do on days of service or any day. And really recognizing that it's, we don't have to limit ourselves to kind of the direct service types of activities, that you can do those public education campaigns that are really focused on changing people's behaviors. And so you'll see, things like promoting seatbelt use or safe driving or recycling or healthy eating or, discouraging smoking or against bullying or that kind of thing. So you can, think about awareness projects. Obviously for service, it's the direct service activities that we're all talking about, thinking about advocacy activities, and then philanthropy. So a lot, sometimes it just takes a little bit of money to help solve a problem, and drives and fundraisers are always good day of service activities to benefit the nonprofits in your community. And again, all of those resources across all of these last several slides are available at ysa.org MLK Day. Just look at the project ideas and tools section. On the next slide, you'll see some of our signature planning toolkits that are available on ysa.org/resources. The Kids in Action Guide is really meant for elementary age students, kind of ages 5 to 12. It was actually co-written by a class of 3rd graders. So it is definitely age appropriate and understandable for younger kids to use in planning service projects. We also have one for the middle and high school aged students, the Youth Changing the World Guide. And then the Semester of Service Toolkit is really great for adult project facilitators. And there's a lot of academic connections in there if you're working with teachers and educators in schools, but there's also just a lot of great adult facilitator tips that are applicable to anyone working with youth in any setting. If you are in a school system or an after-school setting or a youth development organization where you'll have kids on an ongoing basis, you'll see on the next slide that we really encourage people to think about using MLK Day as a launch of a longer-term project that we call a semester of service, that really launches on MLK Day and then goes through the spring and can use Global Youth Service Day in April as a kind of culminating point. and the semester of service toolkit really walks through that process, and is really a form of project-based learning, and can really build some 21st century skills and SEL skills that are on the top of a lot of people's minds. And again, thinking about how to launch that. And so the toolkit really walks through how to use MLK Day to do some of those initial planning, choice activities, thinking about investigation or assessing the community need, that then you'll address through your semester project. So if you're in a setting where you know you're going to have young people on an ongoing basis after MLK Day, think about that as a framework. That said, we know that that most people are not going to have their volunteers on a regular basis through a whole semester. But on the next slide, you'll see some of the most key elements out of the project planning resources that we have to focus on that you can do even if you only have volunteers for a few hours in a morning or an afternoon on a day of service. And that's really to focus on youth voice, on making sure the service is meaningful, on the community partnerships that are part of that, to be intentional about what people are learning if they're developing some skill as part of that experience, and then making sure to take time for reflection. For youth voice, it's really about making sure that they have some choice in what the activity is or how it's planned or how they're going to participate or what their role is. For meaningful service, it's actually a lot of what Megan was talking about making sure that you're showing the volunteers the impact that they're having and how they're actually helping people, and sharing stories about how what their activity is actually doing to benefit other people, and helping make that connection. For community partners, it can be that quick introduction and just hearing from an organization in the community that's also that's working on this issue, that also helps make that connection for ongoing volunteer opportunities if they want to be involved in meeting this need after this day of service. Taking time to actually talk about what they may have learned, and if there's a particular skill and how they could take that forward. And then again, taking time, it can be just a few minutes at the beginning, maybe in the middle, kind of a checkpoint, and for sure at the end, to just reflect and talk about, what they're learning, what their experience is, how they feel about the project, can really help cement it and making it a meaningful experience. And again, lots of resources on how to do all of that in those three toolkits available at ysa.org/resources. We're starting to wrap up with just a few other opportunities. On the next slide, you'll see a map of where we have lead agencies that are funded with subgrants through our AmeriCorps MLK Day of Service grant. So we have 40 of them all across the country where you see those pins. We'll still be adding a few more in the next couple of weeks, but these 40 are off and planning their MLK Day activities. A few of them may be closed if they're within a school or something, but most of them should be open to outside partners and getting other people involved. And so this map is also on ysa.org/MLKday. And when you click on the pin, you'll see the contact information for the point of contact at that organization. So if you're looking for someone else to connect with in your community, these lead agencies might be a good place for you to start. On the next slide, you'll see a few different opportunities it looks like some of the fonts didn't come through in color, but we have 3 different opportunities through our partnership with Sodexo. The first is a scholarship that includes a $10,000 scholarship and a $5,000 gift to a charity. That application is actually due next week, November 5th, but they are particularly looking for younger students. So most of their applicants, as you might expect for a scholarship, are in high school, but they're particularly interested in seeing applications from elementary and middle school age. So if you know of any young person who's been doing some great work around hunger, that opportunity is a good one to share. And then we have 2 project grants with Sodexo for the spring. One of which will be announced around MLK Day, and they'll be starting their work. So it's a good opportunity that if you have again a team of youth working on hunger issues, we have $2,500 grants for projects that really start to address a root cause of hunger in the community versus the smaller grants that we have that are really to do some kind of direct food aid type projects. And that application, the larger grant will open actually today. So you'll see that at ysa.org/Sodexo. And then in early December, the smaller $500 grant will open, and that actually closes the weekend after MLK Day. So every year we always suggest that if nothing else, you can use MLK Day weekend to choose, identify, and start planning a project and write that grant application for a hunger-focused Global Youth Service Day project. And lastly, wanted to share the great work of one of our partners at Interview on the next slide, which and they do great promotion of all of the days of service working with us. And they have it's basically an app for students that can track volunteer hours. They can build service resumes and export that. They can become eligible for awards. And like I said, they promote 9/11 Day, MLK Day, and Global Youth Service Day for us every year. So if a student is a member, and it's free to use for students and free to use for schools to and youth programs to do some of that basic tracking of hours and participation. And they also have kind of built-in activities that they can find in the app on different issue areas. So that's a great opportunity that if there's not something else in the community that a young person wants to do, they can search for some of those pre-built activities in that app. And that's all at interview.org. And that wraps it up for me. So back to Emily.
Thank you, Michael. Your resources truly are fantastic, and I have directed numerous people to your website to find those, especially those off-the-shelf ideas. We'd love those, so thank you so much. And now I will turn it over to my colleague at AmeriCorps, Rhonda Taylor, who's going to talk about some more resources that AmeriCorps has and where you can find those.
Hi, everyone. Thanks to all our presenters. You've done such a great job and gave us such great ideas. On our website at AmeriCorps.gov, I've put the link at the, next slide, sorry. I've put the link at the top because it's involved. You'll find a link to all of our resources, which include project ideas, but I wanted to go over just a few while we're together. Years ago during COVID, it became King Day and other days of service became a really good time to train volunteers. And I think that at the beginning of a new calendar year, King Day can be a really great time to do just that. It could look like Michael mentioned, training volunteers around issue areas. He called it advocacy, we call it education, right? So you're learning about the issues in your community and how as a volunteer you might help address those through both your own education and maybe through direct action. If your community is not prepared for basic disaster response, you could hold a training to help in communities, your community and the individuals in your community, how to be their own first responders. They don't want to go into dangerous situations, but there may be neighbors they can help and things like that. And that's a great time to do that training. As our Jersey Cares team member for this webinar mentioned, helping your volunteers understand how to be matched with community needs is really important. So you might hold a volunteer fair as part of your project or as a standalone project. You can help your neighbors weatherize homes, find and sign up for free tax prep services, run a coder clothing drive. OneWarmCoat.org has great resources to help you do that and to help you get access to codes. You know, addressing food insecurity or teaching about healthy eating on a budget. All of those ideas and resources can be found at our website, and links to organizations like Second Harvest and others to find local food banks and find out what they need um, at the time that you're doing this food drive. After the holidays, food insecurity doesn't go down, and in fact, often food banks need more support because they've just come out of the holidays. If your community or one nearby is recovering from a disaster, you might want to talk to them and find out what they need that you could help them fill for that. You could address issues related to climate change, host a job or wellness fair. You might train tutors to go into schools or after school programs, or maybe their churches are holding, training tutors or deploying tutors, and you might support those efforts. If weather's not a problem, you could prepare for spring or clean up a park or beautify another commonly used area in your community. So all of these ideas and more can be found on our website, and links to organizations that can help you with the technical and project information you may need. Next slide, please. I just wanted to go over a few things that our presenters mentioned. It's always best if your project meets a real and immediate need, or you're collaborating to address systemic issues. Volunteers like to know at the end of the day they've done something that matters. You may want to partner with another organization or a nearby community to expand your impact. Make sure your volunteers know why the project is important. It'll help set you up for success and potentially attract them to be a longer-term volunteer. Set a time aside in your project to reflect on the service. Connect with Dr. King's Legacy. You'll find tools on our website for key messaging and to help you do just that. And highlight organizations that offer ongoing opportunities. Be clear up front with your volunteers whether they're family friendly or if there are skills like using a saw required. It's also Inauguration Day this year. King Day is Inauguration Day. You probably want to assess how that may affect your service. If you're not in the DC metro area, it may not affect it at all, but the timing could especially affect your project. And lastly, please register your projects. It's really important that others are inspired to serve, and your projects will do just that. Getting engaged in your community helps you be more connected. It helps combat isolation if you're either an older or a younger person that may be feeling particularly alone. So we hope you'll use this opportunity to inspire others to serve and connect with each other. So thank you, Emily, and all of you who joined us for the webinar.
Thank you, Rhonda. We do have 2 more webinars coming up. The next one is next Thursday, and it's going to be with some of our federal partners to give us some examples on how you can partner, support projects supported by our other federal partners. And then we have one the following Thursday about storytelling resources and how we can all collectively tell the story of the work that y'all are doing in your communities to honor MLK Day. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to mlkday@americorps.gov. We would love to hear what you're doing. We do utilize the volunteer search platforms. As Rhonda was saying, you register your projects. We do utilize those to see what's going on and how what are some themes and how we can support those projects that you're doing. But if you'd like to let us know, you can reach out to us at mlkday@americorps.gov, and we'd be happy to hear about your project and also help you if you have any questions. So we do now have a few minutes left if there are any questions that you have not put in the chat, you've not put in the Q&A panel. I did want to answer a question that was previously asked about does AmeriCorps have any funding to support these projects? So AmeriCorps generally does have a day of service grant program. We currently do not have any funding available for this year. If we do have money, we hold our application cycles in the spring. So you can be on the lookout in the spring, but we do not know our budget yet. So we do not know if we will have any funding available next year. But we generally do have a day of service grant program that is open for funding for MLK Day as well as September 11th, Day of Service and Remembrance. You can raise your hand if you would like to raise your hand and verbalize your question, or you can put it in the chat.
We have one hand raised.
Okay, great, go ahead.
She mentioned that we should register our projects. I know how to submit my project for approval, but I don't know how to register.
Rhonda?
If you go to our website, mlkday.gov, you'll find, if you scroll down, you'll find a section in the kind of middle of the page that tells you how to search for a volunteer opportunity or how to register your opportunity. We aggregate from several different sites: Just Serve, Volunteer Match, Idealist. I think I'm missing one. Those are the three big ones that if you go and set up a free account there and enter your project information and put hashtag MLK Day in the title, it'll appear in our search.
Thank you, Rhonda, and thank you to all the presenters.
Thank you for joining us.
And there was a question from Roxanne about literacy kits and wondering if that's available. And I know both Megan and Michael mentioned literacy kits for literacy work.
Sure, I can speak to that for our section. My email is in the Q&A box. So if you have questions about our literacy kits, happy to answer those.
So also our grantee Jumpstart has does a literacy kit, and they use those for day of service projects. If you email us at mlkday@americorps.gov, I'll get you a connection with Jumpstart if you're interested. They're kind of like an art project, but they're fun to do.
And are any of the literacy resources that I referenced are everything I said is linked on the ysa.org/MLK Day page. So just look under the project ideas and tools section and you'll see all of the links to everything.
Well, I want to thank our presenters. This information was fantastic, and you've definitely gotten me more excited about the upcoming MLK Day. So thank you so much on behalf of myself and AmeriCorps, and I'm sure a lot of these presenters. It was fantastic information. As I said, this call has been recorded. It will be posted on our YouTube channel next week, so you can check back there for more information. And we hope to see you next Thursday when we have some of our federal partners to give some more examples on MLK Day projects that you can utilize. So thank you so much, and we hope to see you again.